After speaking to the crowd of thousands here on this hallowed ground, President Obama sat down with us for an exclusive interview at a time when things military happened to dominate the news. Chiefly, Bo Bergdahl, the U.S. Army sergeant, coming home to the U.S. after years behind enemy lines in exchange for those 5 prisoners from Guantanamo Bay. On the subject of Bo Bergdahl, there is real confusion, and we're hoping you can clear up this one point that arose last night and today. What was the reason for not informing the 8 members of Congress who would customarily be informed by this?
Brian, I have to tell you the same thing that I've been saying for the last several days, which is we have a rule, a principle, that when somebody wears our country's uniform and they're in a war theater and they're captured, we're going to do everything we can to bring them home. And we saw an opportunity and we took it. And I make no apologies for it. It was a unanimous decision among my principals in my government, and a view that was shared by the members of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. And this is something that I would do again, and I will continue to do wherever I have an opportunity if I have a member of our military who's in captivity. We're going to try to get him out.
The reason for the lack of congressional communication?
As I said before, the main concern was that we had to act fast in a delicate situation that required no publicity.
The 5 prisoners part of the exchange, by their resumes, they're professionals, former high-value assets. The question asked on the cover of Time magazine this week, was it worth it?
The fact is that we are ending a war in Afghanistan. We have released, both under my administration and previous administrations, a large number of former Taliban fighters, some of whom returned to the battlefield. But by definition, you don't do prisoner exchanges with your friends. You do them with your enemies.
In our interview recently with Edward Snowden in Russia, I raised the allegation, the charge that he has badly damaged his country. How has the United States been harmed by what he did?
Well, I'm not going to comment on the particulars of the case. I will say that the disclosures that we've seen had a very significant impact on our intelligence operations around the world, had a grave impact on a number of our diplomatic relationships, compromised our ability to gain insight into some of the work that our adversaries do. I've said before, and I'll say again, there's no doubt that this is an area of legitimate debate. And I think there are patriots on both sides who recognize, on the one hand, we've got to make sure that our eyes and ears are open for potential threats. What's also true is we've got to make sure not only that our privacy is protected, but that the manner in which our intelligence services operate internationally comports with our values and our ideals.
Your personal connection, it's quite a distinction to be able to say that a family member fought in Patton's Third Army.
Well, you know, my grandfather was the first to be very humble about his service. He came in after the initial charge. You know, these men who were so young when they came here, and showed such extraordinary courage and capacity and change the world, and then go back home and settle back down and didn't really make a fuss about it. You know, my grandfather passed away over 20 years ago. This is one of those days where I thought to myself, it would have been nice to have him here. I think he would have been proud to see that what he was a part of so long ago was now being celebrated by a grandson who is the commander-in-chief of the greatest military on earth. I think he would have been pretty proud and probably more than a little surprised.
Part of our conversation with the president here today, and as he left us and boarded his helicopter Marine One, we noticed someone with him. Turns out he offered a D-Day veteran a better-than-average view of the French coastline from above. 90-year-old retired Command Sergeant Major Kenneth Rock Merritt first came to these shores with with the Army's 508th Parachute Infantry Regiment 70 years ago today.